Hey guys, we're going to be doing some more chess problems on the chess.com tactical trainer. So you know the drill. Pause the video, try to figure out the problems for yourself, and then see how I do. And let's compare notes and learn together. Hey guys, Brian Castro here from Better Chess Training, and today we are going to tackle chess.com's tactical trainer again. And we're going to try to solve a few problems, and I will explain my thought process and analysis as we do so. So let's get started. Okay, it is white to move, and it looks like we've got some pressure here on the king. Before I get too involved, let's see if there's any other, because I am noticing this queen is a little open here. But yeah, we do have some pressure on the king. This queen is hanging, so if there's a way to attack it, that might be good. We also know my knight is hanging. Let's see, I just want to do a quick couple things here. Well, we have something like f3, but it looks like the queen can just scooch over, or actually he only has h5 here, so is there a way to attack him from there? Would be one idea. I just want to get my ideas out before we go into too much analysis. His queen would be on h5. Does that allow me any other ways to attack either the queen, or because his queen was defending, is there a way to take advantage of that? Let's see here. Well, let's just explore this. f3, queen to h5. And unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be a safe way to attack the queen. But if the queen's over here, does that allow me to attack his knight somehow? The other idea I had was something like knight takes f7. And after king takes f7, do I have anything after queen takes d7 check? So those are some other ideas. So what I'm thinking here is f3 first, pushing the queen over, and then after that, knight takes f7. You know, that threatens things like queen takes d6 check. So let's see here. What else do we have? The idea is not coming as quickly to me. I try not to guess on these things, but sometimes we might need to maybe make an introductory move here to see. I do believe f3 looks like it's the first move in the sequence. So I'm going to go ahead and try that, and if I get it wrong, we'll analyze it and learn from it. Okay, it is. Okay, queen to h5. So this might help clear things up. So let's see if there's a good follow-up here. By the way, g4 is not available because of h takes g3. H takes g3 en passant would not be good. So I think something a little more forcing would be called for here. So that's why let's see. Let's just look at it. Queen takes d7 check. If the king takes, we have this rook check here. But I don't think we really have much of a follow-up after that. So I'm going to eliminate that as a candidate. Are there any other ways to attack? I mean, the knight's the only piece that can kind of get in here. I mean, g4 He does have this en passant with check, so that has to be. I feel that has to be not a good move. Um, Sometimes, let's see here. And this piece is trapped, so if there's a safe way to attack it, then I could win it. But I'm wondering if it's just a way to deflect from the action over here. Um, what else do we have here? I mean, something like knight. Well, knight takes f7, king takes f7, queen takes d7, check. Looks very dangerous. But again, is there a follow-up? Knight takes f7. The problem with that too is that can he just play something like, I don't know, bishop takes e3. Oh no, it's protected by the rook. Try not to take this long on the problems, but let's see here. I'm probably missing something very easy here. Knight takes f7 is like kind of calling out to me, but the follow-up, which is what I like to have, is the part that I am missing. What about rook to b7? Can you just protect it there? So there's these pieces over here too that are kind of hanging. If I could get a safe check in here, actually, what do we have here? I have to move kind of quickly because now this knight is being attacked twice. Knight takes f7 just seems right, instinctually. Wonder if there's any odd moves like knight to d4, trying to swing in over here. Okay, you know what we're going to do here, because we've been spending a lot of time on this problem. I'm just going to try knight takes f7. It's probably incorrect, and we will analyze later and see what I'm missing. Oh, actually, that's the right answer. Oh my goodness, guys. We're going to look at that problem anyway later and analyze it and see what we can find out, okay? See, this problem was rated 2400, so there's probably some deep analysis here. We just touched the surface, but I'll take it, I guess. Let's move forward. By the way, well, I'll make my comments afterward. Okay, definitely here. Well, we've got to check, so we need to deal with that. What is the best way to deal with that? Because our queen here is under attack, but we'll also notice here that his king, the white king, is also in a bit of trouble. It is stalemated, so any safe check will result in a checkmate. So, but we are in check ourselves. So how do we deal with that? Well, we can block, for example. That would be one way to. We can block with the queen, or we can block with the knight, or we can move the king. So those seem to be the three options. Let's explore them as quickly as we can here. We move the knight over. Of course, it's threatening this check here. And then, if he takes the queen, does that do anything for us to get that check in? See, the problem here is that we can't check the king on the back rank with this bishop here quite yet. Let's see here. What I need is a way to avoid any future checks here. Now that I'm looking at it, the actual sequence that I would want would be to move my bishop here and then here for the checkmate. But I need to get out of a position where I'm going to be subject to a bunch of checks too, because so I need to, I think, block this guy. So I'm actually thinking if I block with the queen and he takes with the queen, then I can take with the knight. It just seems like there's too many checks here. Okay. Well, there are options. So queen to d4, and then if queen takes check, knight takes, and then bishop takes check, and then after the king moves, king would probably move someplace like f8 to keep this pawn from promoting. And then after he makes a move, for example, he might take this pawn here. Well, he can't take the pawn because he'll still, again, he has to protect his back rank. So he has to keep his bishop along this diagonal. But after his next move, pretty much any move, because this king cannot escape right now, I can move my rook onto. I can move my rook where it can check the king. Or, yeah, I can move my rook. So queen to d4 looks like an option. I guess part of it is if I move my king anywhere, then this queen comes in with multiple checks. And then it becomes very difficult. So, thinking queen to d4, and then if pawn takes, then if pawn takes, then I could play something like bishop to c8. So I think queen to d4 is the first move, because let me see, there are no squares that this king can move to that will not be subject to a check by white. And I think that's one of the things I have to do here. So I'm going to play queen to d4. Okay, he takes with the pawn. And so my instincts were right there. Now he's going to be subjecting me to a check next. So the question is, how do I defend against that? Or can I, if I play bishop to c8, because the idea is he cannot stop me from playing bishop here with a check, then what's the, so if I play bishop to c8 and then he plays d5 check, there doesn't seem to be a safe place I can go where I won't be subject to checks again. What I can do is play rook takes b2, and after queen takes b2, then bishop to f8, and now there won't be any, even if he does a discovered check, I can move pretty much anywhere because it's mate in one after that. So I think that's the next move. Okay, queen takes b2, and now bishop to c8, and I think checkmate is unstoppable. And okay, he moves there, and this should be checkmate. There we go. Okay, another 2,400 problems. So these problems are a little more involved. I just want you to notice that part of solving these is understanding the concepts underneath. I'm limiting kind of just random guessing, but using the elements of the position and trying to solve that problem before coming up with candidates. The candidates serve the overall strategy or the tactics of the position. Also, notice I made a big gain in my chess.com tactical training lately, and I think a lot of that is being systematic about studying. And then when I get the problems wrong, I go over them and I try to understand why did I get it wrong and involve that in my thought process. Some of it I think is not conscious, maybe some subconscious, like I'm developing these patterns and these thought processes in my mind. Some of it is deliberate. I'm trying to figure out how to think differently. So I share those ideas with you. I do have a video on some of the 4 tips that I try to do when I solve problems, and I'll put a link in that in the notes so you can watch that if you haven't seen that already. But let's move on to our next problem. So far we're 2 for 2, and admittedly in these particular problems I haven't always calculated all of the everything to the end, and but I've been kind of using my instinct a little bit. So sometimes there's going to be some of that. Again, chess.com's tactics problems are not unlimited time, so you have a time limit, and that affects your score as well. So let's keep going. Okay. Here, let's see here, kind of more of an opening problem. So we see this queen here bearing in on my, took my b2 pawn. And I guess the first thing that comes to mind is there a way to trap this queen or otherwise gain some type of advantage because he left his queen here? Let's see here. It looks like it's usually these types of situations, especially, and the part of this is, I guess, having solved many tactical problems, is trying to understand. It's a multiple move process. So, the first move, knight to b3, comes to mind. However, he's got, and then the idea there being that we can trap the queen via, if he plays something like queen to c3 check, then we have bishop to d2. And then the queen has to go back to b2. And then the question is whether or not we can trap the queen from there, because the queen threatens to get out via a3. So, so knight to b3 is an option. Another thing is to be something like knight to c4, directly attacking the queen, because the queen. Well, the queen has some options. The queen could go back to b5, and there is a discovery, but it might be difficult to find a way to trap it that way. I kind of, the one reason I do like looking at the knight to b3 move, because it prevents the queen from coming back along the b file. Let me just think for a moment. Rook to b1 directly, and then I think queen takes a2 doesn't quite work. What if I played bishop to c4 first? Does that give him time to do anything? I think he just escapes here. So this is why I think, yeah, I think knight to b3 or knight to c4 is a good initial move. Because I think it prevents this queen to b6 escape. So if knight to b3, he's got queen to a3. So I think I'm going to have to end up bringing this bishop in here to block these, and this knight as well. Let's see here. One thing to think about too is rook to b1, queen takes a2. I mean, and knight to b3 after that. There is no escaping along the a file. I mean, I might be able to trap him that way. The main thing too is to cover this. Oh, this is tricky, guys. Let's see. Oh, I'm getting a call here. Okay, sorry, I got a phone call, so I had to take that real quick. But looking at this problem again, so now I've got a couple. I think knight to b3 is one way, and rook to b1 is another way. The other thought here I just had is knight to b3. This check could come in, and then bishop to d2. And what that would do is force the queen back to b2, but then I can play something like a3, which prevents the queen from escaping via here. Now, if I play knight to b3 and then he plays queen to a3, can he escape that way? I don't think he can. Actually, a3 might be a good first move because then it prevents anything, the queen going that way. With then maybe the option of playing something like knight to c4 because it prevents a check on queen to b4. It doesn't prevent this check, but if he does ever checks on c3, I have bishop to d2 covering. So that's an option too. So a3 looks attractive. The nice thing about a3 too is it prevents this knight from coming in. It prevents this queen to b4. Because all of the other, but what it doesn't do, it doesn't prevent queen to b6. So that's a problem. So back to knight to b3 or rook to b1. I think this is a problem where I do need to calculate it out a little bit. So knight to b3. If he plays queen to a3. A lot of choices here. Let's go back here again. Rook to b1. Queen takes a2. And then bishop to c4. Where does he, let's see. I'm a little stumped by this one, guys. Let's see if, in the comments, if you saw this a little sooner than I did, or if you see the answer a little sooner than I did, leave a comment and about how you thought about it or what you saw. But let's see here. Problem with knight to b3 is it doesn't directly threaten the queen right away. So the queen can either do something or you can even bring this knight in. So that's always the issue. So knight to c4 comes back to mind, but then we've got queen to b4 check, as well as queen, all these checks here. If I can block, the nice thing about knight to c4 is that it does prevent, you know what? I think it is knight to c4. It prevents queen to a3. So queen to b4 check, queen to c3 check would be the only options, but then bishop to d2 blocks. And then if he plays something like, in the case of queen to b4 check, which would probably be the better one, queen to a4, then I have to figure out how to trap him from there. And that's maybe a little bit trickier. Let's see here. I think I like knight to c4. I'm just trying to figure out knight to c4, queen to b4 check, Oh, if he plays queen to b4 check, well, I can't play knight to... I can play something like c3, and if he takes on c3, I can actually play queen to b2, and now he is trapped, I believe, because he can't go to... At that point, he cannot go to a4 because he'll be on c3. Can't go back along this diagonal and can't go to a3. So I think knight to c4 is the answer. Let's try it. Okay, queen to b4 check. So I think the mistake here would be to play, well, so bishop to d2 looks natural, but then queen to a4, then I'm lacking a follow-up. So I think c3 is the answer, hopefully. Looks like that is the answer. Now, bishop to d2, and that is the answer, guys. So we figured that out, and it took a little while, so I only got a little point. Another 2300 problem. Today they are giving us the difficult problems, but we are figuring it out, and we are grabbing a couple points. If I would solve it sooner, I'd get more points, but it's better just to solve it. Okay, interesting position here. Got an advanced pawn over here. All these light squares are weak. We have this knight covering a couple of them, so we have to be careful there. This could be pretty straightforward. So what I'm thinking is just something like a queen to c4 check, and if he blocks with the knight, for example, then I can go ahead and play c7, advancing that, here. If he tries to take with the queen, I will take on here check first. So if I play queen to c4 check, and then he moves his king, let's say he moves his king here, then I still think I can advance because there's no way you can... The whole point, I think, is to get something, the queen here, to support this pawn advance. Queen to c4 check, of course, blocking with the queen would lose the queen. If he moves the king away, I could still play... c7 is always the second move, almost. So I'm going to go ahead and try that. Actually, let's see, what are... knight... If the knight blocks, the knight is pinned, so I can play c7. If the queen takes, I'm taking with check, removing the defender. Okay, so queen to c4 check, I believe, is the first move, and that is correct. And c7. Let me just double check. There are no legal checks that black can have. There's no way, and there's no way you can stop this without losing material. So c7 is the next move. Okay, a little bit of an easy problem. That's an 1800 rated problem, so that we were able to solve that pretty quickly. And so we have one more. Let's see here. That is 4 in a row that we got. So let's see if we can finish this off with a perfect score. Here, let's see here. Well, we are... It looks like we've got a couple pawns for a piece, but we're about to promote this pawn. So immediately we should look at moves like rook to e8 check. And if he blocks with the... So if he moves the king, then we just advance this pawn and promote it. If he takes this, of course, we're going to take with the pawn with check. And if he blocks with the rook, what can we do here? We can... well, if he blocks with the rook, we can play e4, attacking this knight. If the knight moves, we take this rook with check, and then if he takes, then we take this rook with check. If he takes my rook here, then I play f takes e8 check, and then when he takes with the other rook, I take the knight with the pawn, and I should be ahead some material. So that looks good. Now, so the question is, I don't think I play e4 first, because even at that, he can just move the knight to say, we can just take this pawn, for example. And then do I have anything? I can take here with I can take the rook, and if he takes with the king, then I can still play my rook here to to d1. Okay, so so the question is, should I check first, or should I play e4 first? So let's take a look here. So rook to d1 check, and then he pretty much has to play rook to f1, and then from there I play e4. Okay, notice he doesn't have any checks, so there's no intermediate moves here. And let's say he moves the knight. Now he could do something like moving the knight to d2, and then I would still get this check in. So this knight really can't move. His next move would be to take my rook, and if he takes my rook, I take back, and then it promotes my pawn. So he has to take it with his other rook, and then I can take his knight. And in addition, if he takes his pawn with the pawn, and then I will be, I will have 6 pawns left, theoretical, or 5 pawns, because one of them will get traded. He'll have 3 pawns left. I'll be a good couple pawns up if that's the case. So that's one option. Now if I play e4 first, what can he do? Let's say he moves his knight. Let's say he can move his knight pretty much anywhere. Say like to e1, and then if I took his rook, he takes back with the king. Then what happens if I can play rook to d1 as well? Am I winning material? Well, I'm going to win at least a rook, probably, it seems. So this is the question here. Let's see, let's look at this again. e4, and then does he have any other moves that would be, oh, you know what? e4 is no good, or e4 doesn't look as great because he has knight to d4 here. So I think I have to play the rook first. So rook to d1 check. Okay, and now e4 should be the next move. Oh, that is not the next move. So we are going to, got that wrong. This is a 2500 rated problem. So this is the hardest problem we faced today. So I'm probably missing something. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. But that was a good run. We got 4 out of 5, and let's learn from our mistake here. Hey guys, so I have downloaded the problem into Skid, so we can take a look at it, and let's get to the problem position here after knight to f3. And let's see here. Oh, okay. And like I said, rook to d1 check is the move to make, and rook to f1 is the best response. And so the solution here, and this is one of those ones where I probably needed to reset mentally and take a look at the position anew. See if you can figure it out if you want to pause it, but if not, you can just follow along here. And the answer here is rook takes f1 check. So a couple ways for white to take back. If he takes back with the rook, then now we have this pin, and if the knight moves, for example, then we can play something like rook takes, and after the king takes, then we promote this pawn. Okay, so if the king takes, then we pin the knight now, and we're going to win this knight. Okay, so for example here, and then we can just go ahead and take. Okay, So that is the solution. I got the first part correct. Let's go back. Rook to d1 check with those ideas of this back rank and this promotion. Rook to f1, and I had the right idea, but not the most efficient way of executing it. Let's see what happens with e4 here, just to show you why this is not as good. Then we can take here, and then after we take, here, after we take here to promote, then rook takes d1, e takes f3, and then white actually has some counterplay here with rook to d7. So he's going to win these pawns back here. So black, this position is fairly even after this continuation, and that's something that hopefully in a game I would have caught with more time. But it's something where when you have the right idea, you always want to look for your opponent's best response. So hopefully that helps, and we learn from our mistakes, and hopefully we will apply that to our future sessions. Okay, talk to you soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you enjoyed it, please press the like button. I'm going to guess that some of you solved these tactics problems much quicker than I did. And they were difficult though, so if you didn't get them on the first try, that's okay. These were highly rated problems, 2,400 and 2,500 rated problems, with one intermediate problem thrown in. And we're going to jump around. Let me know what you think about using the Chess.com Tactical Trader. I also use Chess Tempo, and I haven't really featured that one recently, so maybe I'll do that next week. But hopefully you can see through these videos that sometimes it takes a while to figure things out, and sometimes I may get the right idea, but it takes a while to kind of calculate and figure out the right move order, and sometimes I don't get the right move order, as you saw the last problem today. And as you can see, I don't really edit the videos. I did cut it off at one point when I got a phone call, but I try to keep it very transparent, so you see how I train and what thoughts are going. At least most of the thoughts that are in my mind. There's probably thoughts that are some calculations that go on in my head that I don't that I can't get out vocally. But I think I hope you find this helpful. I've gotten feedback that it has been helpful, and I think it's been helpful for me too to kind of elucidate or enunciate my thoughts as I solve these problems. So. If you're new to Better Chess Training, though, on Fridays, this is what we do, our tactics training together. On Wednesdays, I do other instructive videos. And the goal of Better Chess Training is to help you to improve your chess. And it is about a chess journey of chess improvement, kind of joining my journey as we do these videos, as well as allowing me to join your journey, at least in a little bit. I really do appreciate that, and I hope that you will subscribe, and we can continue on this journey together. Okay? I'll talk to you soon. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time.